Okay, we are going to be installing, it's actually a 3.5 in the front and a 3-inch in the back lift kit on the K30. So this is a super lift. It was around $500 and it took about a month to get it here. So it comes with new shocks, the steering arm spacer, I guess, your U-bolts and nuts. It was missing one U-bolt, so I am locating that. When it got to me, it was the leaf springs were just shipped just like that, and then the box was completely destroyed. And I believe the UPS guy pieced it back together, and that's probably why I'm missing a U-bolt. So I've just gone through and inventoried everything that's here, and we've got all the shock hardware, got all the bushings for the leaf springs. I don't exactly know what that is, but we'll see. And come along with me as we attempt to install a 4-inch, well, 3-inch lift kit. I've done 2 other 4-inch lift kits. I have not put a spacer or the lowered or raised or whatever steering arm on there, and it is both of them previously have steered and acted somewhat the way they're supposed to. Anyway, once you put the bushing in, usually this one comes out the other side, and then push it down with the wood clamp. Okay. Long shocks go in the back, short shocks go in the front. Comes with a little bushing dealy bob that pushes it out away from the frame. Okay, so we've got everything loose. Everything came apart really easy, and the leaf spring bolts are not seized in there. They turn and they push in and out. I couldn't get the impact into here because there's not enough room, but they easily came with a breaker bar and then a big socket wrench ratchet. The only thing I was a little bit confused about is the fact that it only came with 3 U-bolts, so I thought I was missing one. But actually, I believe this is a Dana 60. I'm not terribly versed on front ends, but this is a 1-ton. So it bolts into the pumpkin housing there. And, not pumpkin housing, but the front differential housing. Whereas you have a U-bolt on this side, you have those 2 bolts over there. And those were mothers. I had to get the breaker bar with the jack handle to break those loose, and I thought it felt like it was going to break them off, and that would have been big trouble. But they came loose, and it took quite a few turns before it got easy. But here we go. I've got jack stands under the frame. Those are bigger than normal jack stands, taller, and then I've got jack stands underneath the hub area. And I've got a tire up here just in case it falls down. Jack stand. And then your sway bar mounting point here for your U-bolts. It's going to be at a severe angle when you go back. So just take a big crescent wrench and pry up on it to get it to the right angle. And it should pivot like that to get to the right situation. Also, the bushings, the rubber bushings, were too wide. Hey! Hey! Damn it. Frank, it's taken off. So the bushings were too wide. So they were about an inch too wide, so there's no way in hell that they were going to go into the mounting. So I took a cut-off wheel and cut them off, and that's probably not appropriate, but that's what I did. Cut-off wheel, cut them off. The front is done. So it worked best with the jack stands. I would have liked to have been behind that cross member, but that's getting quite a ways back there. And then take two, I've got one big jack, one small jack, and use that underneath the front end on both sides to lower and raise it the way you want it. The sway bar was really no problem. I had to replace the pin on this side, like I said, of the leaf spring. The other side worked just fine. I didn't have to replace the pin in it because the hole is a lot bigger in that one. Shocks went right on. Brake lines, I would probably do the drop bracket or maybe a longer brake line, but at full extension you still have a little bit of play, and then I just bent the hard line down there. Okay, so we are finished with the 3.5/4-inch lift kit, and it was a bad day. I almost didn't do this because patience was at a low today, and I didn't even really want to start it. But
you woke up a little crabby. I'm not gonna lie.
Crabby and a little sweaty. So let's come over here and take a look-see. Sun baby. Sun baby.
That's the sun.
So I started this about 9:30 and basically finished this at 2 o'clock by myself. I had no help.
Is that a dig? Are you trying to let everybody know I wasn't here helping you?
No, I kind of welcome the lack of mental drain at some point. Sometimes it's a little draining. So let's look up underneath here, honey. Okay, so the first issue I had was that the bushings were too wide. They were like an inch wider than the space. So I took my cutoff wheel and cut them down. The second issue I had was the pin that goes down and seats itself into the differential, the mounting pad, was too large. So then I had to take the pin. Let's go over here, honey. Show them what the pin is. So this is the pin.
Oh, you're in the...
This is the old pin. Don't look at all the trash. This is everything that's been taken off of this truck. So to see the pin, are you focused on that?
I'm focused on the pin.
And the pin just unbolted out of there. So I took that pin out and put the old one back into the leaf spring. But in order for, because when you take that bolt out / pin, then the leaves uncompress, and the pin is the pin / bolt is too long, is too short, because the old one is longer. So you take your wood clamp and you clamp the leaves together and stick your pin in there and get a couple threads started and then bolt that down. So that was one of the issues. But we made it through there.
That was the second issue.
The shock bolt, come back over here, honey, has a special bushing that looks like this. This is too long. It won't fit into the space in between the bracket. So then I had to grind this down like a 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch to get the and come over here, honey. Hi. So I thought I was shorted one U-bolt, but actually there's 2 bolts on this side that go down into the differential. I believe that's a Dana 60 thing. So I was not short a U-bolt. The sway bar was no issue whatsoever, but I did take the bolts that are accessible. Can you see that? That are accessible on the front side and loosened them. So this is the sway bar is able to be pivoted. It worked best that you put the tall jack stands underneath the frame right here, and then use your 2 jacks and your jack stands to be creative and lower the differential axle down as you see fit. And like I said, I believe in the no, I didn't say that. You need to jack this vehicle up because it had 30-inch tires on it, so I jacked it up so the tires were off the ground a little bit like that, and then put the jack stands underneath it, and that was not enough because the rotor was almost on the ground when it came time to get the leaf springs in there, because it had to go a lot farther down than just the leaf springs were accommodating. So make sure you do that. All the bolts came out super easy. There was no issue with any bolt. There was no stuck bolts anywhere.
That never happens.
It never happens. Impact gun, that's all you need. That's all the special tools you need. These suckers that were in the differential, the leaf spring bolts that are in the differential, those suckers were tight. And the reason why I didn't take the sway bar off, because the nut or the bolt is too large. I didn't have a socket. I believe it's like a 1-inch socket. I did not have a socket. So I tried breaking that baby loose with a large crescent wrench, and it wasn't moving. The brake lines, so this is supposedly 3.5 in the front. When the shocks were fully extended, they were pulling on the, so I bent the hard line down here, and I'm just going to leave them the way they are. And like I said in the previous video, I have lifted 3 of these now, and I have not changed the steering arm. And that may not be safe, and that may not be practical, but that steering arm is a bitch to get off.
Watch your language.
So in closing, the front was really pretty easy. And I went into it a little bit hesitant because of my mood today.
You better knock on some wood, because the rear is...
The rear should be the easy one.
Yeah.
But whenever I say
fun.
it's going to be the easy one, shit happens, bolts break off, you name it, something happens. So that's going to be on my next day off. Hopefully I'll have a little bit better patience on that day. We are a few days later. I'm in a little bit better mood, a little more patient, and knock on wood, this should take not that long to do. And what I was going to say about the front end is that the leaf springs, the original leaf springs, were 3 inches, and these are 2.5 inches. But the bushings that they supply with the new leaf springs take up that slack. But even though they were 1 inch wider than they needed to be. Also, I would like to mention having all 4 wheels and tires off of the vehicle is not very safe. I would have preferred to have the rear tires on while I was doing the front, because it's very unstable. So don't do it that way. But I was changing the wheels over to the new tires and didn't put them back on. But that's not very safe. So we've got jack stands right there because of the fuel tank. It's not very accessible to get to the frame. So we've got them underneath the leaf spring perch, I guess. And then we have our jack. And I'm going to use my impact to take the U-bolts off. So let's do it. I always take the wire wheel on the cordless drill and clean up the threads that are visible, that are exposed, and then spray a little bit of lube on there. It seems like I never ever spray lube overnight, or it seems like it just kind of gums it up, gums the threads up. And so the rear U-bolts, they were tight. So I took the breaker bar with the jack handle attached to it, and I could not have got them loose with just the breaker bar. It needed the jack handle. And I did a couple turns with the breaker bar, and then used the impact. The impact would not move them. So everything is loose now. I loosened the shocks but didn't take the bolts out, because I'm going to see if they drop down far enough to get the blocks in, just to keep the rear end kind of centered and not just loose as I put the jack down to try to get the blocks in there. Look at how the U-bolts have rusted away where it sits down in the pocket on the bottom side there. That's pretty crazy. I've never even seen that before. So I usually take my wire wheel on my drill and I get all of the surfaces, all the threads, all the everything for the shock mounting, for anything I can around there, leaf springs, and wire wheel it off. I also have a wire wheel on my grinder, and I use this thing for everything. I clean everything. I clean those, clean all the nuts, the bolts, the everything. This is probably the #1 tool I use in this shop. Okay, so I probably should have jacked this up higher, but I've got a jack underneath the pinion and underneath the back because the shocks weren't long enough to get it down far enough. So I took the shocks out, and then the whole thing starts shifting around. So I've got the block in, and I'm going to attach the bottom plate and then go over to the other side, and hopefully we can get that in there. But yeah, because the rear end is like all over the place. All right, we are in, and I'm not gonna lie to you, this was not easy. I thought that the back would be easier than the front, but I have wrestled with this Dana 60 for quite a while. It wasn't that tough to get the blocks in, but the rear end was slightly cocked, so I could get 3 nuts onto the U-bolts, and then the one I couldn't get it into the hole, so I kept messing with it, and then I got 3 on that side, and then just kind of manipulated the jacks up and down. I had the one small jack underneath the pinion there to keep that, because if you don't have that jack when you first start this, the front end drops down and is all out of whack, and you can't get your blocks in there. But I finally got 3 on that side, 3 on this side, and then it kind of straightened itself out since it was in on this side. But that was a bitch. The last 2 that I've done with half-ton trucks they have been a lot easier. The one, the bolts just dropped right down in, and you just tighten them up. So the taper in the block, if I didn't say it in the last clip, goes towards the front. So the narrow side goes towards the front, and that doesn't seem like it's right, but that is what is right. Okay, honey, do I look like I'm beat down, hot, and
Battered.
wore out?
Yeah.
I am, and it's 80 degrees out, so it's too hot for me.
Are you sure it's 80? Doesn't feel 80.
It's hot enough. I'm well sunburned. So, like in the last clip I said, after I got done with the front, saying that the back is probably, there's going to be some issues or something. Well, the back was kicking my ass. And, I'm rolling around on the concrete here. It's not a comfortable situation, but we got it knocked out. So let's take a look under here. And the reason why I'm so dirty and wore out is the fact that I cleaned everything up. Here,
Yeah,
let me
take a look at that.
let me see. Let me see the camera, honey. We don't have time to mess around here. So we've got the blocks in, tapered goes towards the front. We got the new shocks in. We did a little cleaning. That's what took so long, is the fact that I wire wheeled everything under here. And yeah, so this is like I said in the previous video. I'll take that again. This is 3.5 in the front and 3 inches in the back, because I don't like the whole, I don't like the sloping situation, and I think the front needs to settle just a bit. But, and also this is a 1 ton, so I think it sits up a little bit higher than a half ton or a 3/4 ton. I don't know about a 3/4 ton, but I think it sits a little higher to begin with, because that's quite a bit of lift.
It's kind of
for 3 inches.
It's a difficult angle because the sun is causing some problems here.
But I'm fairly happy. Those are 36-inch tires, and they actually measure about 35. And all tires, pretty much all aftermarket tires, they say that they're 35s. The last 35s I had, the Nankang or whatever they are, they actually measured 33.5, which is really short, saying it's a 35. So the average tire is 1 inch shorter, at least, than what it's advertised. But I think we did good. It's done, and on to the next project.